Take a good look at your tub of protein powder. Well, guess what? It's about to get swept up in a massive global pricing storm. It's no surprise that in 2026, we've seen wild price swings for things such as coffee, rent, gasoline, all take massive spikes. But now protein powder, which used to be a convenient and cheap way to get your protein in, has now since become an expensive luxury and something we see in a lot of everyday products. Just think about that pre-packaged protein shake, maybe even some protein pancake mix, and maybe for some people, protein pasta. Hi everyone, my name is TheoLiftsSometimes, and today I'll be showing you why the cost of a high protein lifestyle is rapidly becoming more expensive. So to get a clear understanding of what I'm going to get into today, it's important to understand the journey of one crucial ingredient: whey protein. For decades, whey was just a watery byproduct of making cheese. It was often sold for cheap or even used in animal feed. But then, everything changed. We as a culture became obsessed with protein. It all started in the fitness world, where we learned that whey protein is packed with essential amino acids, it digests quickly, and is a fantastic tool for building muscle. But that was just the beginning. The trend exploded out of the gym and into the mainstream. Suddenly, everybody wanted to get more protein. People trying to manage their weight learned that protein helps them feel full, and the idea of high protein convenience foods quickly took off, and now we see the amount of protein being plastered on regular foods such as cookies, cereals, and even pot pie. And just when you thought the demand for protein couldn't get any higher, another powerful trend added fuel to the fire: the rise of GLP-1 weight loss medication. As millions of people started using these drugs, healthcare providers began giving them crucial advice. To prevent the loss of lean muscle during significant weight loss, you must eat a lot of high-quality protein. And what other option is both convenient and very popular? Whey protein. With that being said, this has contributed to a massive growing source of demand that is putting an incredible strain on our existing supply. This isn't just about building muscle in the gym anymore. This is a fundamental shift that is changing the way we look at the things that we eat. The market is no longer a niche. It's global, it's popular, and it's growing at a staggering rate, with some analysts projecting the market to be well worth over $50 billion by 2036. So, if the demand for whey is through the roof, why don't companies just make more protein? Well, it's not that simple. As I previously mentioned, whey is a byproduct of cheese, so you can't just decide to make more whey without making more cheese. But the real problem is way more complicated than that. The true bottleneck is the processing capacity. So you see, the liquid whey that comes with making cheese has to be turned into the powders that we use, like whey protein concentrate or even whey protein isolate. This requires highly specialized, expensive facilities with advanced filtration and drying systems. These plants cost a fortune to build and can take years to get up and running. So, for years, these existing facilities were enough at the time, but they were built for a world that was predictable with steady growth, not currently, which we see the explosive hockey stick chart demand that we're seeing now. This has pushed many of the world's major processing facilities to run at or near full capacity at all times, creating a traffic jam in the supply chain. This can create a frantic scramble for supply. At times, this has led to the reports of producers selling their output well in advance, squeezing what's available on the spot market, which is where many brands, especially smaller ones, buy their ingredients, and when there's little available for the immediate purchase, the prices for what's left can skyrocket. So that brings us to today, where we see a record-breaking demand from every corner of the industry. So here's part of the story that no one is really talking about, and it's the real reason why the cost for your protein is facing so much pressure. And it's not just about your tub of protein powder, but everything else that's happening at these actual grocery stores. See, for food companies, whey isn't just used for its nutritional value, but it's also kind of a miracle ingredient for its functional properties. It can improve the texture of foods, help with emulsification, and make products more stable and appealing. It's a multi-purpose tool that becomes invaluable in food science. And because of this, big food companies have been quietly adding whey to dozens of everyday products you wouldn't expect. Of course, there are the obvious ones being protein bars, ready-to-drink shakes, but it's also being used to fortify certain types of high-protein yogurts and meal replacement drinks. You can even find it in protein bread, protein brownies, protein chips, and yeah, even protein soup. And now suddenly, supplement companies aren't just competing with themselves for whey protein, they're competing with global, huge food giants. So the same protein that you put in your post-workout shakes is being fought over by these big companies to make fortified protein coffee, protein cereals, and yeah, even protein water? So here's the revelation. The intense competition and demand isn't just affecting the supplement industry, it's affecting the entire food industry. The price of your protein powder is increasing because it's in competition with your breakfast muffins, your afternoon yogurt, and even the person next to you who just wants a convenient on-the-go high protein snack. The game has completely changed. What was once a cheap byproduct of cheese has now been a high value strategic global commodity. So what does this perfect storm of a high demand and a squeezed supply mean for your pockets and your pantry? Well, there's a few things. First and obviously, prices are going to spike. When the cost of a key ingredient like whey protein begins to spike, as we've seen in the past, companies can only absorb that for so long before eventually that cost begins to get passed on to us as consumers. Second of all, and I'm personally the biggest hater of this one, get ready for shrinkflation. And I'm not talking about shrinking inches off the waist. I'm talking about downsizing the product for the same cost. So, the price on the shelf may stay the same, but the amount of product you might get goes down. Your 5-pound tub of protein might suddenly become 4.5 pounds, or your favorite protein bar might just get a little bit smaller. It's a subtle way for companies to manage rising costs without scaring you away with a new price tag. But the third consequence that you really need to look out for is reformulation. To control costs, companies may start changing their recipes. They might reduce the amount of expensive whey they use and substitute it with something else, potentially a cheaper protein. These could be other dairy proteins like milk protein, casein, or even a plant-based protein like soy, pea, or even sources like egg white protein. And I'm not saying these other protein sources are necessarily bad, but they completely change the products that we know and love. They can affect the taste, the texture, sometimes leading into that chalky or gritty feeling, and even the digestibility. Some companies might just quietly reduce the protein content. That bar that used to have 20 grams of protein might suddenly only have 18, but the packaging will almost always look identical. Now, as I'm closing out, some of you might be wondering, is this going to be the new normal? Well, no, because right now there are massive investments being made into new processing facilities to increase supply. However, these things take time to build and bring online, so while more capacity is coming, the market right now might remain tight for a little bit. So, what can you do about it? There's a few options here. First, become a label detective. Get in the habit of reading the ingredient list and the nutrition panel of your favorite products. Is it still being made with 100% whey isolate, or has the blend of other proteins crept in? You're gonna have to pay attention to that. Second of all, stock up smartly. If you happen to have a favorite protein powder and you see it's on sale, it might be a good idea to buy an extra tub or two. This is especially true if you want to lock in the current formulation before the recipe potentially changes. And third, this one is super important, and I really want you guys to remember this one. Protein powder is not a substitute for real whole foods. Whole foods will time and time again be your best friend, whether it be eggs, chicken, fish, lean meat, lentils, beans, plain Greek yogurt, as excellent, high quality sources of protein that aren't tied to a specific supply chain bottlenecks of processed whey. So, as I wrap up, we are currently witnessing a fundamental shift on the way we see the protein market. A perfect storm of exploding global demand driven by health trends and new medications has collided with a bottlenecked supply chain that hasn't been built for this kind of pressure. The result is a scramble that pushes historic highs and threatens to change the very nature of high protein products that we've come to use daily. While things may eventually stabilize, the days of whey protein being a predictably cheap, plentiful commodity may be changing. The protein game is evolving, and you now know the rules. So tell me in the comments, have you seen your favorite protein powder change in price or change in flavor? Let me know. Until then, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.